Hi, welcome to the podcast From One Mother of an Addict to Another. Today I'm talking about the grief of growth. How do you give yourself permission to be a successful entrepreneur, a creator, and a whole person when you don't even know where your son is? This isn't about getting over it, it's about the reality of carrying two lives at once. You know, the success stigma is a really big thing out there today. You're supposed to feel like broken, messed up, sometimes like just in a dark room, just to prove to somebody that you love them because they're hurting. And, it always says, oh, you're only as good as your kids are happy and your first, all your kids are happy. And that shouldn't be, because it's not true. You can't make happiness for people. You can't live other people's lives. I think that my generation, we were more helicopter. We wanted to be more hands-on, and it was almost like we were too hands-on, but that's that. And sometimes, I feel like I look back and like, oh my God, look what I've done, and, he's not a part of my life, and I haven't really thought about him. People, it's kind of like it got in the way. All the things that I was doing are getting in the way of me thinking of him, and now I feel guilty, and the guilt of not thinking of him all day, and that makes me sad, especially when people ask me about him, and then I realize I haven't thought about him lately. So I was so distracted by other things, which is good, but it's also okay to be mindful of it. It's okay to feel that way. And also, it's like you're living two lives. You're living the life of a parent with an addict, and you're living the life of someone that's moving on with their life without that child in their life. It's almost as if you've experienced a death, just like someone that's lost their child, which is a horrible thing. And, that pain never goes away. It just doesn't. Sometimes I think about, when it starts coming up, like, what is, it's been so long, I haven't heard from him. Am I going to get a call? I'm going away. Could it be? Is it going to be this year? Is it going to be this month? Putting yourself out there is scary enough, but then when you are, and you're not in that room crying, and you're not, in a hole, you're exposing yourself to many more emotions. And as many emotions as you think are outdoor is just as many emotions. And the only way to conquer that is by being mindful of it. And the only way of being mindful is to acknowledge that you're living two lives. Recently, someone said to me, I was living this lie, like I'm with my husband, we don't get along, but then on the other hand, we're together. We're not together. So it looks like we're together, but we're not together. And that's living two different lives. And it's tiring, and it's exhausting. And this is no different from that. And sometimes it weighs on you, and sometimes it catches up to you, and that's where those feelings come in. It's funny because it's staying busy is a way to honoring him by surviving, or a way to erase the pain. It's never going to erase the pain. It's just taking up time. It's taking your mind off of it. And it's interesting because at the end of the day, when something great happens, don't you want to share it with everyone? But if you can't share it with everyone, and you're missing someone important to you, it kind of makes it feel not as important. It makes it feel actually crappy, because, I think about many things times, and he hasn't been a part of my life, and he hasn't seen those moments. And it's sad. And it's sad for me. I'm sure it's sad for you. And not including them into your life that way. Someone recently said, their kid, they're so thankful their kid is not coming home for Thanksgiving. And that was, recently this past Thanksgiving, and I'm like, wow, that is a really great way of looking at it. I'm really grateful he won't be here for Easter. I'm really grateful he won't be here for my holiday. Sometimes it just feels so much more disruptive, and it just changes the dynamics in the room, the behavior. Everyone's waiting for it to occur, and that's why it's interesting, because there's guilt that they're not there. It's guilt that they are there. It's guilt when you think about them. It's guilt when you're not thinking about them. And I just don't think there's a way out of that. I don't care what anybody says. It's just a way to move forward. The pain will be there, and every day it will get hopefully a little less and a little less. And, when you do something else and you're successful at it, doesn't mean you completely forgot about your son or your daughter or your relative. It just means that you've moved on with your life in the best way you could at that moment, for whatever that is. And I just think that it's something you have to train yourself. It's nothing someone can teach you. There's hope, if that helps. And it doesn't solve a problem. It's just that guilt is really real, and that is guilt for so many things we experience with our kids. And when you look back and you're like, oh, yeah, I really probably should have done it differently. I should have been more relaxed in the mornings when I was getting them off to school. And, maybe I should have been more patient. And maybe I could have done things differently in that way and this way. And maybe if I would have been a little harder on them. And what if I wouldn't have, given in so much? It doesn't matter. You could look at it a million ways. I don't even think the outcome is always different. It's not. When you meet people and you come across their stories and your stories, the patterns are there. It might be a little different. You might have gone left, they went right. Doesn't matter. The stories, the patterns, they're all there. And it's a lot of guilt that we haven't been able to crack it. It's like cracking the code, the Rubik's Cube. It's great, and you're such an accomplishment when you do it. But if you can't do it, boy, you really feel. But this Rubik's Cube, no way. And it's interesting, because what's scarier is the guilt is when also you have a child that is an adult by now, let's say, and they've been okay for 5 years. They've been taking their meds. They've been going to therapy and been really consistent with their life. And then all of a sudden it stops. You don't know why. You don't know what triggers it. Something just stops them, and they're like, I'm fine. I've been fine for so long. I probably don't even need this anymore. And they stop taking their meds. And then, it's so... everybody else is just so ridiculous. And then, obviously then you start seeing the patterns again, and they start. And then the guilt. Why wasn't I there right then? Why didn't I be stronger? Why couldn't I get more involved and maybe take them to the hospital? It's so frustrating, because there are not a lot of things you can do. It's one of those things, like all the money in the world still can't solve it. It doesn't matter what you throw at it. We're all on the same level when it comes to addiction and mental illness. And we all will experience the guilt. And no matter what anybody says to you, it's there. And the only way to suppress it and look at it like for sure that you love your kid. And you don't need to prove that to anyone. And because you're not sitting there crying every day or thinking about them or trying to solve their problems every day, that actually makes you healthy and a winner, and actually makes you able to stand up and say, I can't solve this. And that's where you have to be, and not feel guilty because you can't solve this. Now it's time to speak about the cousins and the brothers and the sisters. You know, it's very hard for people, kids growing up, they grow up with their siblings and close cousins, and they all feel the pain. They all feel the guilt that they've gone on with their lives, and they don't know, either know where they live or don't know where their brother lives or sister lives, how they're living compared to the way they're living. Huge guilt is put on themselves because they love their siblings so much and miss them the way they knew them. And they're sitting there just feeling as guilty as you. And that is something as a parent we must remember. We must explain to them, to the kids, to remember that this is not for them to carry. They did nothing wrong. It's okay that they're having the life that they're having, even though their sibling is not experiencing the same thing. And that is the hardest thing for their brothers and sisters to see, be a part of, and then they take the guilt because they're not getting involved. They're staying out of the addict's life, if the addict is even still in everybody's life. But if they're not, then it's the guilt of, oh, maybe I should have done more. Maybe we need to go look for them. And then on the other hand, it's, oh my God, I feel guilty. I don't want them at the table. No, I feel guilty. I don't want them near us. I don't want them near my kids. I don't want them disrupting another holiday, another party. And it's not fun. No, it's not fun. Nope, it isn't. It's not. It ruins looking forward to things, events, and you get to decide who's there or not. And a lot of times, most of the time, you're better off not having them there. Even if it's a wedding. Even if it's a wedding, it doesn't matter what it is. There's no need for them to be there. The guilt of their siblings not there for their milestones is also something that scars them, because that stays with them and they're thinking about it. It affects them, their birthdays, the same way. But it's very important as parents that we continue parenting our kids always and explain to them that they need to move on with their lives. They did nothing wrong. And just because they're living the way they are doesn't mean anything. It means that they're going on with their life, and that doesn't mean that they're bad for doing that or done something wrong to their sibling that is an addict or has mental illness. They don't need to take it upon themselves. I have seen so many families break up over this. Kids explaining to their parents that parents think that they're going to put all this pressure, take it off of them or bring in everyone else so that everybody's involved with the pressure of coping with this kid that's an addict and mental illness. Or sometimes what you do is you tell your other siblings, the kids, guess what? This is not your responsibility. It's mine. It's mine and Dad's and whoever else is involved in your life. And what you say is, you need to go on with your life. That's what's important. It's my responsibility as the parent to have this, to carry it. And that is the truth. You should never let your kids carry any of this. They will resent you. They will resent that addict. Getting involved, helping the addict, no, no, and no. They need to go on with their lives. They don't need to bring them into their family unless they are on meds for their mental illness, and that they are doing IOP or some kind of therapy and are on a track for some time. You never could let your guard down, ever. That's not guilt speaking. That's not it's guilt that, okay, what did I do that didn't, that prolonged this? What did I do so wrong that made this constantly happening over and over and over again? The episodes, the rehabs, not speaking to him for 2 years, not seeing him, not knowing where he is. This is not any of our faults. The guilt sits with us because we look back and say, we look around and see other people with their kids. Why can't mine be like that? What did I do so wrong to get mine so different? Nothing. It is really, unfortunately, something in their DNA. It's the way they express themselves, the way they were able to cope with their mental illness, their depression that they didn't share at one time, not understanding where they were coming from, but has nothing to do, no guilt whatsoever. But you cannot, and you need to stress this and take your kids one by one aside and say, look, I might have put some of this on you. I needed help, but you're not the one to help. None of us can solve this. And that is where it comes from. You gotta be really strong and realize that you're the adult and your kids are always your kids. Thanks for listening. I hope this was helpful. Have a great day. Keep listening and stay strong.